Hi, this is Colin from the History Pilgrim. I hope you've been enjoying my videos, and I'd be interested to hear your comments. Be sure to like and share with a friend. Sitting at the mouth of the largest river system on Earth, famous around the world for its jazz music and Mardi Gras celebrations, is New Orleans. One thing that is undeniably a massive part of the city's identity is its low-lying nature. The city is literally sinking and depends heavily on the strength of a system of levees to ensure that the city doesn't flood, which in the case of extreme weather events the city often does. Because of its low-lying geography, New Orleans is undeniably one very odd place, but it is this oddness which makes it such a massive draw for visitors. The city's architecture is perhaps its most vivid example of how such a low-lying geography affects life here. Many of the buildings are often built on stilts or brick piers opposed to traditional foundations. As a result, almost no buildings in New Orleans have basements. The buildings in the French Quarter, which have bright, colorful facades and wrought iron balconies, are so different than buildings found anywhere else in the US, having more in common with architecture found in France. Floods are simply a way of life here, and it is strange when several inches of water flood the streets, and people have to retreat to higher floors of buildings temporarily. Because New Orleans is built on such marshy ground, the city is naturally prone to sinking into the earth. This, combined with the ever-shifting course of the Mississippi River and its vulnerability to rising sea levels with climate change, have raised concerns over the safety of the city in recent years. It is very likely that eventually all of the levees, which are incredibly expensive to build, will fail and the city will flood to the point of no longer being habitable. Because of the peculiar nature of New Orleans, the city has a relationship with the dead, which few other cities on Earth can claim. Unlike every other city where cemeteries are quiet, out-of-the-way places, the cemeteries in New Orleans act as major cultural landmarks. This is because the dead here do not rest in coffins underground. In New Orleans, the dead remain packed in above-ground crypts. Because the water table is so incredibly high in New Orleans, coffins would often float back up to the surface whenever it rained. This led to people to start to build above-ground tombs instead. In 1789, St. Louis Cemetery No. 1 was built. Over time, the tombs became more elaborate. Wealthy families built ones with ironwork and sculptures, or ones resembling chapels. Family tombs were built to hold multiple generations, with remains being moved further in over time to make way for more burials. The result is a hauntingly beautiful location full of aging stone structures draped in Spanish moss, with plaques with the names of those buried inside. Other cemeteries, such as Lafayette Cemetery No. 1 in the Garden District, offers an equally enchanting but entirely different experience. This cemetery feels strongly connected to antebellum Gothic fiction. Because of the close connection to the dead, ghost tours have focused on cemeteries on their tours. Another very odd thing about the low-lying nature of the Crescent City is its very weird public transportation. Unlike most other major cities in the US, which have underground subways, New Orleans has a system of wooden trolley cars. In every other city in the US, wooden trolley cars lost appeal to buses and light rail by the mid-1900s. However, in New Orleans, the constant risk of flooding made these options impossible. As a result, the trolley cars from the late 1800s remained as the main transportation system in the city. The famous line, the St. Charles Avenue streetcar, is the oldest continually running streetcar system on Earth. Another baffling aspect of New Orleans is its bars. Due to the soil the city is built on, many of the bars have visibly slanted floors, lopsided doorways, and the strange feeling that your bar stool might tip over before you even have a drink. The famous Lafitte's blacksmith shop has floors which tilt in multiple directions, and a candlelight interior that feels more like the interior of a pirate's lair than a typical bar. Other bars, such as the Chart Room, flood so often that people just continue drinking even when the floor is underwater. Because none of the buildings have basements, it severely limits how many patrons can fit inside the bars. This has led New Orleans to legalize drinking out in the streets. Oftentimes you'll find drinking alcohol out in the streets is more uniquely part of the city than the bars. The unique topography of New Orleans has influenced the type of hotels that can flourish in the area. The city's low-lying nature often intersects with its history. As a result, many of the hotels have been converted from old warehouses, factories, or historic mansions. This means guests might find themselves staying in a former sugar refinery or an old mansion turned into a hotel, which makes many of the hotels feel like living, breathing relics from a bygone era. In conclusion, New Orleans' low-lying nature is not merely a geographical feature, but a defining characteristic which shapes the city's very identity. This unique topography, perched precariously below sea level, fosters a city teeming with contradictions. The constant battle against the water has not only made New Orleans a city of resilience, but also an undeniably quirky city. From its swamps to its streets, New Orleans proves that when you are trying to live on the edge of nature's wrath, you might as well embrace the weirdness that comes with it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to subscribe for more history videos. Sincerely, The History Pilgrim.